Welcome back to the Pathfinders podcast. I'm your host, Pete Schramm, and we're going to talk about career maps and a personal board of advisors. And on today's episode, it's going to be a little extra interesting because you're going to get a sneak peek about the Latitude journey from somebody who has seen the business and the adventure before it was even called Latitude. So Alexa is a good friend of mine, and we met before COVID. Can you imagine? So far back. In the DC area, whenever I was still living down there, Alexa and I first had our a 15-minute coffee conversation adventure that turned into, she can, truth check this whenever she comes onto the show, but over an hour, maybe closer to 2 hours, who knows, but it was remarkable. Alexa Tsui comes from more than 2 decades in BD capture, in the government space, DoD space, and beyond. She's a guru whenever it comes to how do we win business, how do we shape this, how do we do this the right way. And I think you'll quickly get a feel for how she likes to do it in a fun, innovative, always pushing the realm of what's possible and challenging the way it's been done before. Hailing from the DMV area, Alexa, welcome to the stage.
Hey, thanks so much, P. I want you to do my intro for everything. Such good energy.
Happy to. Always, my friend. So, and I forgot to add in a little bit about AFCEA and a bunch of American Heart Association, a bunch of other things that you're part of. So before we get into the what your take is on the Latitude journey and adventure, let's hear a little bit more about you and what you're up to now so that our guests can understand how that fuels your passion around this topic of people helping people, the passion and innovation around driving businesses forward, and start off by a little bit of what you're doing now and then give us a reverse.
Sure, absolutely. I'm the Chief Operating Officer of G2X, which is one of the leading platforms for helping companies find opportunities and partners for government contracting. And like you had kind of mentioned, I have about 20 years of experience. Half of that is on the market intelligence side, kind of what I'm doing now. And the other half of that is actually doing BD and capture. So winning deals, chasing deals, delivering on, doing operations, recruiting, basically every function except pricing. Because, math is really not a strong point.
So if somebody hasn't really heard, I think you're just fine at math. If somebody hasn't really heard of BD or capture, can you break down what is that? Are they different?
Oh, it's so funny that you asked me this question because I get it a lot. And I'm doing a presentation in a couple of weeks on that exact topic. So business development is really the front part of finding an opportunity, qualifying an opportunity, and then getting it in front of the leadership of a company. So for example, USDA wants to buy a system to track bird flu, right? So on our side, the contractor side, we find that opportunity, we map it back to the budget, we try to find out if they have money for it, who's the incumbent, how is the incumbent doing, and really getting in front of the government customer, understanding the mission, understanding the challenges, and understanding the technology. And then that's business development. Does the customer know who we are? Can we do the work? And, have we qualified it? So that's BD. Capture is when the company says, this opportunity is good. Our past performance works, our quals work, we have the people, we can do this. Okay, how do you get to the win? What does that look like? I had just mentioned pricing. That is a piece of it. But it's teaming. It's pricing. It's like, what does the competition look like? What's the Black Hat review? What are some of the other things in the ecosystem? What vehicles are coming out? Can we prime? Should we sub? Kind of like all those other parts and pieces. So I feel like it goes really from like a fancy marketing type of a thing into a pure strategy thing.
And I think we can build on it. And just for everybody else, I've learned a lot about the difference of those two from Alexa. So I wanted to give her a chance to share some of what she's educated me on over the years with the group. But think of it as kind of the marketing funnel. And whenever you put that BD and capture flair on it, that kind of point of that funnel becomes even more precise. And it's like you're no longer going shotgun approach, but very much so sniper approach. And it's like, hey, not only can we not miss, but we can't lose whenever we do those two things the right way. And through that process, you're sometimes going to understand, should we not go forward with this opportunity?
Yeah, no, I like that you said that because I always tell companies, every time bid something, you're saying yes to something else that's probably better qualified. So I feel like saying no and being ruthless I really like the whole shotgun versus sniper thing. That's fun. I think I might use that.
Nice.
But yeah, every time you say no, you're saying yes to something else.
I think it makes a lot of sense. All right, now give us the 30-second recap before you got to COO at G2X. How were you spending your 9 to 5s?
Sure. So I really thought I was going to be a English teacher, and I really wanted to be one. I lived in Japan. I have a master's degree in teaching English, and then I went and started doing that job and found out that in fact it wasn't as fun as it sounded. And also, I was much more curious about the world around me, specifically in the DMV and all of the companies that are kind of around the Beltway. So when I put my resume on Monster back a long time ago, Input, which is now GovWin, contacted me immediately, like the same day. And they were like, hey, we want you to come in for an interview to be an account manager. And so I took the job, long story short, took the job there. Then I went to Bloomberg Government. And then I kind of started my BD capture career. And then I did G2X1. I'm in G2X2 now. So now I'm back.
Is there
That's
going to
pretty
be a
good, right?
G2?
30 seconds. Is
It
what?
was it was 37. Is there going to be a G2X or a 3 coming along the way? G3?
G3. So you know what? G2X is, I really loved the platform when the first time I was there, and I love it now. I do think that we're growing and building something really, really special. And whatever happens after G2X, I feel like it's going to be related for sure.
There we go. Nice. And please tell us about the guest for the folks that are watching on the video. I remember the days before Alexa had her sidekick back there.
Are you talking about this one?
Mhm.
This is Ashley. Yeah,
Hi, Ashley.
she's just hanging out.
Hanging out. So, Alexa, you and I got connected actually, this is a fun story. Let's talk about how we got connected through Michelle, who got connected through Lloyd, who got connected through a barbecue, who got connected through the days at Lockheed Martin. And this is just a reminder about how powerful networking can be. So my buddy Ben says, hey, let's go to this barbecue at somebody's house. I said, okay, cool. So we go to it and I meet this person called Lloyd. I'm like, oh, Lloyd's pretty fun. And Lloyd says, you got to meet this person, Michelle and Alexa and a whole slew of others. And shout out to Lloyd as well. He still does something where he gives me a 30 for 30 of what he thinks about the business, mentorship, career map, pretty much every year. So we're going to have to remember to get Lloyd onto the show as well. But that's what brought us together. And so we sat down, I think it was in the Bethesda area. And I was like, hey, Alexa, I might even said Miss Alexa. Can we, meet for a cup of coffee? And we didn't end early, but just take the audience and the listeners back to that first interaction.
Oh my goodness. First of all, shout out to Lloyd. This is such a homie, right? But I remember you walking into that meeting and being like, holy smokes, Pete's one of the tallest guys I think I've ever seen in my entire life. Of which case I didn't want to stand up and shake your hand because I'm probably one of the shortest. So anyway, it was really nice to meet you. You came in with such good energy as you always do. And one of the things I really have appreciated about you from the jump is that you've always been very convicted about whatever it is that you were doing. And at that time, you were very convicted about this new mentoring app that you wanted to build. And, I created the Mentor Protege program for FCA Nova, and I've done like some support for it at the international level. And I've created many over the years Mentor Protege programs, some more successful than others. It's really not an easy thing to do. And so it was really great to sit down and hear your vision on, bringing the technology pieces together to see how you could really succeed in that endeavor, I guess.
Mm-hmm. And it's been a whirlwind of a journey. So we can talk a little bit about what mentorship means to you and some of the methodology from the Pathfinders book, right? That's why we call this the Pathfinders podcast. It's all about people developing, refining, refreshing, getting good ideas and insights on what could or should my path look like. So it's always changing and evolving as we keep going. So reminder, career map is where I've been, where I'm at, where I want to go. And we talk about it in 5 different dimensions: the roles, the skills, education and certs, achievements and accomplishments, and then some of the fun stuff along the way. And then once we have that little bit of a map, we're able to then share it with a couple of mentors, right? And say, hey, you've been there, done that. What are your thoughts? And so taking that idea of a mentor protege program to the next level. And you might say, listeners, right? Hey, this is a concept I can do myself. Sure, go ahead, please do it. If you want to make your life easier, scale it, save time, give us a call. We can talk about latitude. But that idea of having multiple different mentors that can provide insight, guidance, and perspective along the way, everybody has different lived experiences. So, Alexa, talk a little bit about that from your perspective, kind of building on the groundwork or framework of a mentor protege program. But now, what if we're able to put in a career map like, hey, let me show you something, mentor, and then having a couple of different mentors?
Yeah. Well, one of the challenges of mentor protege program really is not the matching of the people. It's what do they talk about, right?
Mm-hmm.
And mostly the tricky part is it's on the protege to really have an idea of what they want to talk to the mentor about. And as you kind of alluded to, having more than one across different topics is probably best.
Mm-hmm.
So the whole mapping concept is really brilliant because it forces you to sit down and think like, okay, imagine I was going to sit with somebody who's the most successful at this thing that I want to get better at. How am I going to explain what I'm looking for, where I need to go, and ultimately what are the questions I have along the way where this person might be able to help me. But if I haven't done that homework myself and I just get on a call, then we're just, I actually did, you asked me also to talk about like what mentoring means to me. I've always been a part of a program where I wanted to be a mentor or a protege in one or the other, right? So I remember this last time when I was with my previous company, Metaphase, I was a mentor, and I got on a call with this gal every week. And she just, I don't know, she just wanted to chat or, she's a lovely lady and I still, I'm in touch with her, but like, we really didn't have a direction. So if you don't have a direction of where you're going to go, how are you going to get there? Really, it's kind of that concept. So I think that's where the mapping piece comes in and is so super valuable. So that's the answer to that question. And as far as having more than one mentor, it it really, nobody's the best at all of the things. One of my favorite podcasters, his name is Lenny. He's a very famous product owner, and I think he worked at like Airbnb or something. And then he broke out and started doing this podcast. And he interviews people that are experts in go-to-market and sales and in different parts and pieces. And I feel like having that concept of talking to the best of the best at each one of the pieces where you want to excel just makes good sense.
So where do you find some of the people for your personal board? Now that you're in a very high up leadership position, we get people onto the show where they might be, mid-career, early career, some are senior career, but hey, let's face it, whenever you're towards the top of the food chain, who do you like to surround yourself with for insights, perspectives, and guidance?
Well, I'm going to bring up another one of our good friends who we haven't talked about yet. Her name's Keisha. And
Woo!
she had this super fun concept of reverse mentoring. So
Mm-hmm.
I like to find good mentoring no matter what packages it comes from. And honestly, some of the most impactful mentoring has come from people that were younger than me or in a position that was, more towards the beginning of their career. And even some of the family members that I'm exposed to, not by birth, but by choice, like, my brothers that have gotten married or whatnot, or my current boyfriend or whatever it is. But being open to different perspectives is really more of a life philosophy. So to answer your question directly, I do have a couple of like CEO level types and even, different, like for example, Ron Jones, he's the CEO of G2X. He's very good on the product side of the house. How do
Yeah.
we build something cool and get it in the hands of people that can use it? And how do we keep that energy and drive alive? And really, that's something that I didn't have a big background in. So just the opportunity to work with him every single day, I feel like is a little bit of him mentoring me into like, no, this really matters. Because I always tell him like, hey, government contracting is its own beast. He's like, no, it's not. It's software. Don't tell yourself that. I'm like, oh, you're right. No, you're actually right. And so, he's one of them. I have a couple more, because when you see good leadership, you know what it is. It's kind of like when you see bad leadership, you also know what that looks like too.
And what it feels like. And you probably
Yeah.
feel that super often. So you say, hey, I'm going to try and move over. If you can't do that, then you're going to move out. Let's go
Yeah.
back to that piece we talked about with our dear friend Keisha on reverse mentorship. So a lot of times we think about, hey, this is just me finding somebody who's more senior, more experienced, more proficient in a certain area. They don't always have to be older than me, but they're somebody that has more in this area, right? But this idea of reverse mentorship, and I learned a ton. We both learned a ton about it from Keisha, who we still do a lot of projects with. So let's talk about kind of reverse mentorship from your
Sure.
perspective, Alexa. And everybody, if you're listening, you want to learn more, we can put some information about Keisha and reverse it mentoring into the show notes.
Yes, absolutely. Well, it's funny. As I've gotten older, and old age is really something. Old is really somewhere in a time frame that you just haven't been yet, right? So I remember like when I was 20 and I was like, wow, 30 is like super ancient, and then you get to be 30, and then suddenly 40 is ancient, and then you're 40, and you're suddenly like, okay. So then you realize by the time you get to 40, like, okay, well, you know, old age is really just somewhere you yourself haven't been there yet. But that post is gonna keep moving. So even if I'm 80, I'm sure I'm gonna be like, woo, those octogenarians, they're old. But then by that point, you're just a blessing to be alive. But the reason why I'm bringing up age is because the older I've gotten, also I've realized that um the different generational groups matter. And at first, when I was a lot younger, I didn't think it did. I was like, oh yeah, Gen Z, or Gen X, or millennials, like who cares? Like it doesn't really matter. But the older I've gotten, the more exposure I've gotten to younger folks, the more I realize, oh, it does matter. It matters a lot. So, I love working with Gen Zs because they have such a different approach. And a
Mhm.
lot of times I learn the most from somebody that has a different approach than me, right? I'm very type A. I'm very like get everything done all at once, super, super fast. And then take on all of the things right after that. So, the Gen Z approach of like, let's figure it out before we get started and then take it slower and iterate on it. Like the whole agile iterative sort of thing is, as a Gen Xer, that's new for me. So, I appreciate that younger generation bringing the fire, bringing the different ways of thinking and the different methods of approach.
On the various approaches that we can have whenever it comes to these kinds of relationships, let's talk about bad, then let's talk about good. And this could be hypotheticals, they could be real world. We'll leave data and specific instances out of it. So you can choose what you pull from the archives here. But talk to something that could be about as bad of a possible, mentee, you as the mentor interaction.
Me as the mentor.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I would think, somebody that just didn't that what was that meme that says like an asshole, somebody that asks you for advice and then just doesn't ever listen to you. So that's probably one of those. Yeah, I did have a really great protege recently, and I would always give him the most off the wall advice ever, and I was always like, this poor guy probably gets on the phone with me because I was constantly telling him like, look, I need you to have more fun in your 20s. You're way too focused. And like, I'm sure I'm the only person in his life telling him that. Like, he was just like so trying to line everything up perfectly and trying to save all this money. And he's like, but I'm so stressed out. I'm like, you know what? Let go a little bit more, And so um I don't know if that was good or bad for him, but I felt like it was just different than he had expected.
Yeah, I'd add in a couple of other pieces. We don't want to be late. We don't want to just only ask, like you said. You don't want to only give yes, no responses or very short 1, 2, 3 word responses because it's very difficult for you to build off of. You don't want to never say thank you because if you don't want to not come with a couple of questions, agenda, any of that preparedness and kind of wasting your time. Your time is so, so precious. And how in the world are you supposed to get 1.5 million things done if I'm here taking 20 to 30% of our conversation just talking about what the heck we're going to talk about? You're like, oh my
Right.
gosh, I've had enough of this Pete guy. And we didn't even get into whatever might be the meat and potatoes of this conversation.
Yeah, 9 times out of 10, when it's talking about effective communication, because that's ultimately what it boils down to, right? I think ultimately effective communication comes to somebody shutting their mouth. So asking more questions and not talking as much is always going to be a good approach.
What does Lin-Manuel Miranda say in Hamilton? Talk less, smile more. I think that is applicable here as well.
Yes.
Now
Yes,
let's
especially,
just
yeah.
go ahead.
No, go ahead. No, yep. You're good.
Okay. So now let's talk about what really, really good looks like. And maybe this is you as a mentee and working with a mentor. But what does ideal state whenever it comes to maybe it's, into our third or fourth conversation, but what does that relationship look like? You mentioned a couple of hey, we didn't really have a goal before. So talk about what really, really good looks like in this now.
Right. So I do have a pretty amazing mentor that I get the opportunity to talk to a lot. She's recently retired. She's in the military. In fact, you might know her as well. But she's just so incredible. And one of the things that she does that I think I should do more of is ask really good open-ended questions. So, like for example, if you came to me and you were like, "Hey, I'm having this particular challenge," rather than just being like, "Well, you should try A, B, and C," asking the next set of questions like, well, tell me more about that. How do you know it is a challenge? Like, what makes you think it's a challenge? Right? Because so much of our predetermined thinking is based on maybe a perception, right? So she does an exceptional job of asking open-ended questions before offering any advice at all. And I always felt like I should do more of that.
And I think that's a place that a lot of us fall short, and it becomes more relevant or more clear that we can ask questions like that. Because, hey, me as a mentor, if you ask me a focused question, I can answer that for you. But if you start asking those open-end questions, and I might go down a rabbit hole that I haven't, even explored or undusted for months or years or decades, right? It's odd that I can now say decades, right? But that's the piece. So I think that's just a really good tip for everybody to think about, almost like a coaching mindset. Oh, tell me more. Tell me
Yeah.
more. What led you to that
Yeah.
from the
Coaching mindset
mentor,
is
but
exactly what it is.
also the mentee, right? Because a lot of times we
Right.
talk about, write about it in the book, is from the mentor asking those kind of questions. But I think both
Right.
sides of it. So that's a good one. Anything else that it really stands out? You mentioned a couple of great mentors that are likely on your personal board of advisors, but any kind of those other tips, or like, wow, this one really stuck out, right? Somebody helping you or you helping somebody else.
I'm going to give you something that probably nobody else has told you before. I think being funny. So recently, I read a leadership book about being funny at work and how it increases the perception that somebody thinks you're a good leader. So that was an incredible book for me, and I really felt like in all aspects of life, being funny is a life hack. And I'm not saying like make fun of things or even approach it from like an inappropriate angle. I'm saying levity, joy, being funny, making jokes, something like that, because it really provides the opportunity for the other person to not take themselves too seriously. And, a lot of times when we go into mentoring discussions, it is very serious. It's like, oh, I want to accomplish all these big goals. And, but the thing about being an adult is you look both ways before you cross the street and get hit by an airplane. So you're like, how can we have more fun while we're here? Also being serious, right? And I really do subscribe to that. I try to also not get too serious living my life because we're here for this is a Pitbull quote. We're here for a good time. We're not here for a long time.
Mm-hmm. I like those ones. Alexa, let's talk a little bit more about, if somebody wants to grow in the GovCon space and they
Yep.
want to, maybe they want to be like you. What are some of the skills that you might say could be helpful? Maybe there's education or certifications. I'm just thinking about some of those future steps on their career map. Some of the achievements, accomplishments. You mentioned some proposals, maybe some winning things. But what if you're able to put a couple of those different pieces together? What does that really look like? And maybe you're even going to share this podcast with them and be like, "Hey, you want to come work with us? Go listen to 20 minutes in and da, 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 da."
So this is a great question, and I ask it on my podcast as well. And so it's nice to hear like a familiar question. If I was to give somebody some guidance on if they wanted to be like me, which good luck, just kidding. No, I would say, for me, I realized early on, like early in my career, that networking and having a strong network is really important. And I'm not talking about connecting with people on LinkedIn and then never talking to them. There are people I talk to on LinkedIn all the time, or even I text them and I don't need anything from them. And this is a key thing here, right? You're building community, you're building relationships, and you're not doing it at a time when you need something. It's like so super key to realize that these things are something that you show up for over years, right? So I've got people that were in the government, out of the government, back in the government, out of the government. They're at this company, they're at that company, they quit their job, they lost their job, they started a company. I've got people that I've been connected to like that for over 10 years. So when somebody's like, oh, hey, do you know somebody at this company? I have 37 connections, all at the first level of whom I know very, very well. Who would you like to talk to? Yes, absolutely. I got you. And it's not like at one company, it's like hundreds of companies. So it's like, I would say, get really good at making friends and mean it, right? Like really care about it. Meet with people for lunch with no agenda, get to know them, hang out with them. This last weekend, I was at the Cowboys and Commanders game, hanging out with business owners and the deputy CIO. And, we were just having a good time. And like that, it goes back to that, not taking yourself too seriously. Like these are people. And so get to know the people, get to like the people, and also let them get to know you as well.
Do you recall when we went to it was back then, it was the Skins game, and there was a
Yes.
little bit of networking there, and everybody was trying to get Hall of Fame players attention. And how did we kind of take a slightly different approach? We're like, hey, let's take a shot. And he's like, what? Yeah, yeah. And
Yes.
so I think just trying to think outside the box
Yeah.
is, and we had no agenda. We didn't ask for an autograph. But it was
Yeah.
just kind of a fun way. So, newsflash, this stuff works. And,
This stuff
Alexa
works.
actually does it.
Yeah. So that's funny because that player actually signed my jersey too. And he also
Oh,
gave me
no
his
way.
phone number, which is a whole other thing. Yeah. Yeah. But you know what though, Pete? Interestingly enough, like even when it comes down to like he gave me his number, which, like who cares? It's like all about connection, right? It's all about like the human to human connection. I'm convinced that the reason that we're here as humans on this planet is to build these communities and
Yep.
to connect with each other and lift each other up. And so really, having a strong network is just like all these little opportunities to do exactly that. And it's really super fun along the way, I think, to do that. But you know what's funny though, Pete? I have to say this. There's a lot of introverts out there, and not everybody's really comfortable walking into a room full of 1,000 government contractors and government and just making friends, right? Like it's not for everybody, but it's for me because I'm an extrovert and I know everybody, and it's, I've been doing it for a long time. So I feel comfortable. But whenever I see, I think people like me, an extrovert, should also consider it their job to make the introverts feel comfortable,
Mhm.
right? And they're not hard to find. They're usually along the edges of the events. They're usually looking really pained, like they didn't want to be there. Not sure how they got there. Maybe they feel like they're lost. So it's up to us to go up to them, introduce yourself, and make it easy for them. And I find, I take that as a mission pretty seriously when I go to the big events. And having worked at Bloomberg, there's a book called Bloomberg by Bloomberg. And one of his tactics was to show up with an extra cup of coffee and just talk to a stranger and be like, oh my gosh, I got this extra cup of coffee, and it works at conferences all the time. There's somebody you want to get in front of, have an extra cup of coffee and give it to them. Nobody's ever turned down a cup of coffee.
I like it. Well, I guess now with all this craze of, hey, am I caffeine free? Maybe one's with caffeine, one's decaf, one's a mushroom coffee if you're into that much
Mushroom
water
coffee.
or something. Tried them all. Alexa, I'm going to get ready to do a recap here in just a moment. But if you'd share the value to an organization of what we've talked about up to this point, right? So whenever an organization is able to implement this methodology, these concepts, of, hey, a couple of mentors and helping everybody put together a little bit of a plan, past, present, and future, how does that help that company or organization, that group of people at the end of the day?
Right. So if our job here is connection, and as leaders that are building companies, it is our job to lead with kindness and compassion and understanding, and also give them the tools to also grow and build, then this is like the ultimate value, right? I've seen a lot of organizations struggle with like organizational development, leadership training. All this is like, file this whole thing in there, right? And it's something that companies should think about. It's something that companies should invest in, and it's something that should be at the top of their to-do list as more and more companies are going to compete and fight for really good talent.
I think it comes down to it's something they can't afford not to. Alexa, if you want to give us one kind of closing thought to the group, to the listeners, and then I'll go ahead and just read through a quick 30-second recap here.
Sure. I would just say, be kind, be generous, and have fun.
All right. So, Alexa, we will do our best to be kind, be generous, and have fun. Talking from your BD and capture experience, full of fun and innovation. Now the COO of G2X. You're a revamped, revitalized, re-energized ex-English teacher, ex-Japanese resident. You've literally done it all. Our paths cross after multiple connections post-barbecue and around ABSEA in the DMV area. You've done a lot and have a lasting legacy with the Mentor Protege program there. And thank you for taking the time to meet and chat and share and guide and provide insight and perspective those years ago. We gave a special shout out to Lloyd, Michelle, and Keisha, and you talked about the Career Map Personal Board of Advisors, and we added a special lens around reverse mentorship. You gave the advice of having a plan and goals for each mentoring relationship is absolutely critical for both the mentor and the mentee, so you don't feel like you're just going in circles and circles and circles. Visualizing and having a map and reviewing it consistently is a really helpful framework. Reminder that age is just a place that we've not yet been. Learning up, down, and side to side. You shared that you love interacting with other generations, and don't be an asshole. One of my favorites from the show today. Things to avoid and not to do. Thanks for sharing those. Lack of ownership and accountability. We do not like that. On the other hand, greatness can be based on open-endedness. Taking a coaching mindset from the mentor and the mentee, right? Asking questions, open-ended questions, and at times trying on funny for size. Be real and blend in some laughs. And I can genuinely say that Alexa does this, walking the walk and talking the talk. You shared a little bit more about how to win in GovCon, and it's about networking. And I think that's a tip to win in any kind of role, gig, position,
agreed.
function. And I agree wholeheartedly. It's not just about the fun stuff, but staying connected, getting connected, and being real. I agree. And my purpose is similar to yours, that you think others are here to help connect as humans, to build one another up. And in closing, we can call all those other extroverts out there to make an effort to loop in others, included but not limited to those introverts. Alexa, thanks for joining us today.
Thanks so much, Pete. That was your wrap up was super fun.